Hello, welcome to episode 78 of No Holds Barred Pod. I'm Don McGowan, and anyone watching will have spotted that we're missing our co-host this evening. Sal's not feeling too hot at the moment, so I've going to do a little mini episode on my own. Hope that's all right. I hope I don't bore the pants off you, but we haven't recorded since the local election, so I thought it was kind of prudent to just put something out, just a little local election breakdown and a couple of other things that have been in the news since we last recorded. So what's happened? So I put out an episode yesterday on our discussion series before I start. Go and have a look at that. It's recorded with Mike Dix, who, if you don't know, is the amazing political cartoonist behind the Trumpton account. So I've put all his links in the show notes. It's go and check him out on wherever you get this, everywhere really. But it was a really interesting chat about the Renters' Rights Act, because Mike's been affected by that sort of particularly over the last few months, and he's got a very good insight on that. So go over listen to that. Other admin, our Patreon community is growing. We've got quite a few members now. So if you want to join us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/noholdsbarredpod. We've got lots of little chat groups, putting out extra long episodes for Patreon members. You get them a day early. When Sal's feeling better, we'll be doing a weekly Teams chat as well, back with Sal. I'll do one this week probably, but it'll be either me or Sal on a weekly meeting. But yeah, have a check us out on Patreon, because it's a growing community, which we like. The local elections, should we start there? I guess by now everyone knows it's Sunday night, Sunday the 10th. Everything's kind of shaken out now, so we know a bit more about what's happened. The gist, really, is that Reform did well. They were always going to do well. We knew that. We talked about it a lot on the pod. I've written about it. We knew they were going to pick up loads of seats, and they did. But they didn't pick up as many as they were projected to pick up, which is a small nugget of kind of hope, I guess, for those of us who are very much on the anti-reform wing of the politics. They've picked up a lot of councils, a lot of seats. But as I said, I think their vote share has dropped. I've got it written down. So yeah, Reform's vote share fell -4 points to 26% from projected 30% in 2025 last year. Labour's only fell by -3 points. And the Green Party's projected vote share increased by +7. So, they did well, the Greens. Although, if you listen to the media, watch the legacy broadcast media, whatever you want to call them, you wouldn't see that. But, yeah, so Reform really not doing what everyone thinks they're going to do. So I was listening to the radio on Friday morning as the results were coming in. Farage was postulating, doing what he always does. He was outside Havering Town Hall saying that this was it. He was going to become the next Prime Minister. Within an hour, I heard Andrew Marr join Nick Ferrari, I believe, or was it I don't know, whomever, on LBC, and proclaimed that was it. This set of results meant that Nigel Farage was going to be the next Prime Minister. He isn't, and that was nuts. And it's made him look a bit silly, I think. That was at a point, I think it was like 9:30 on Friday morning. We hadn't even seen nowhere close to half, maybe even a quarter of the results at that point. And Marr declared to the national radio, then wrote a piece on LBC, and then clipped it up and they sent it out on LBC. Marr says this means Farage is the next Prime Minister. What a load of bollocks. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, why you would risk your political credibility, which Andrew Marr did have, obviously. He was a fully credible journalist. But why you would bet everything, hedge your bets on Nigel Farage so strongly to say that that's it, he's the next PM, doesn't really sit well with me, that one. Almost as though he's got a bit of inside knowledge, right? But the whole thing was such a circus manufactured by Farage, because France 24 and Al Jazeera were reporting throughout last week before the elections. They couldn't quite believe how our media was sort of hyping this up into, whatever, basically a general election. They kept calling it a referendum on Starmer's job, and more about that in a minute. But France 24 and Al Jazeera said this is about potholes and bin collections. They were reporting it through the week, and they just could not believe the hype that was being thrown out by this. But it kind of just goes to show you, doesn't it, the sycophancy of our media when it comes to Nigel Farage. He sort of leads them around by the nose, and they just fall in behind him. But yeah, I don't know. Yes, Reform did well, but they did well from a standing start in these councils. So, the reason Nigel Farage threatened to sue the government, he didn't in the end, but he threatened to. And the reason they were so adamant that the postponed elections were reinstated, despite some of the councils not going to exist next year, was because the majority of them were projected Reform councils. So had these postponements gone through as planned, the picture would be very different now, today. The turquoise seats across the country would be much fewer. So that was the reason they wanted the postponement annulled and cancelled, because it was specifically engineered so that the Reform councils could look strong. If Farage didn't have, whatever it was, the 1,400 or so seats that they picked up, then it would have been seen as an abject failure. But because he managed to engineer those ones into position and got the Starmer to change his mind, then it looks much stronger. So Reform won 1,451 seats, which is a lot, but a lot of people were predicting above 2,000. So again, not so good. 14 councils overall control. That's not huge. Labour have still got 28. Looking at the Greens did well. They got plus 441 in terms of seats, and 5 councils, which is a strong showing for the Greens in the councils. Coming in slightly behind the Tories. I mean, the Tories lost 6 and the Greens gained 5. So you can see when you look at the numbers where the split really is. But the strongest results, 64 councils have no overall control. So it doesn't bode particularly well for local government, but it tells you how split things are at the moment. We are really in a multi-party system now. We're not in that duopoly of Labour and Tories anymore. So a lot of talk about proportional representation having to come in before the next election, and I think that might happen because if Starmer engineers that through the Commons and then is prepared to run in a coalition with the Greens and the Lib Dems, for example, then Reform UK become null and void. They're not a party. There's no point in them anymore. Because really they've still only got 25% of the overall national picture. So if the the left, centre and left-leaning parties still make up a strong 72-75% of the country. So if PR comes in and coalition governments like they have in Europe, Reform are out of the window. Will Starmer do it? Unlikely, but we'll see. So yeah, what else happened? Yeah, I mean, it was touted as a general. Oh yeah, the other thing's just the biggest load of lies was Farage positioning himself. This is sort of a get Starmer out. A vote for us will get Starmer out. One of the bigger lies he's ever told, but loads of people fell for it. I had many conversations on Twitter with people who said they were voting for Reform to get Starmer out, and actually genuinely meant that's what they wanted. That's what their outcome was desired outcome of the election was. Yeah, and no matter how many times you sort of spoke to them, and if you follow me on X, I'm polite. I don't bite. I don't swear at people. I don't tend to get into arguments generally. But when I tried to explain to sort of the reform people online that this is a set of local elections, there's so little chance of getting Starmer out on this, but they wouldn't have it. Nigel said, "Get Starmer out," so they were like, "Yep, we're getting Starmer out." I'll come on to him in a minute because that's the other big story of the week. But overall, reform did well in the Brexit heartlands and the Brexit voting regions of the country. Not much outside of that. Their reach is quite limited and specific. It is that 25% nationally, and it does track almost identically with the Brexit voting regions of the country. Professor Sir John Curtis was on Nick Ferrari's show on Friday morning. He was trying to explain this to a very cloth-eared Nick Ferrari, but Nick Ferrari wasn't having it. But John Curtis was saying, their reach outside of the Brexit voting regions is very, very slim. It's where they've fallen down the most in this set of local elections is they haven't expanded their reach outside of the Brexit areas, which will be a disappointment to Reform fans and also the higher-ups in Reforms, who must be wondering if it's possible for them to branch out. Maybe they're just going to bring in some more Tories. I don't know. Zaya Youssef made a bold claim, I could think on Friday, said, or Saturday, no more Tories, we're not having any more Tories, but we'll see. I just think Farage might still become leader of the Conservatives if the Tories did really badly on Thursday night, Friday morning. Kemi Badenoch's got to be on borrowed time now. I don't see how she can pursue this much longer, but she was out saying that they were making progress. They haven't made any progress. They've gone backwards. Let's see what the Tories did. They lost 563 seats. Yeah, I mean, proportionally, that's worse off. That's a worse position than Labour. Labour lost 1,496 overall, but Labour were projected to lose anything between 1,500 and 2,000. So in real terms, they did badly, clearly, obviously, but they didn't do as badly as some were suggesting. Again, another kind of failure of Reform, but they can't pull votes from the middle or the left. Obviously, they're not pulling votes from there, and they can't. So the Labour votes going Lib Dems, Greens, Independent. Yeah. So let's move on to the kind of reaction that Keir Starmer's had a shocker in the press. He came out and accepted responsibility for the losses. Fair enough. They all have to do it. Well, unless you're Kemi Badenoch, who turned the losses into some kind of mythical win. But Starmer said, it's unacceptable, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have to rethink what we're doing. And then went on and brought in Gordon Brown and Harriet Harman to his top team, which is a strange move, if I'm being honest. Both exceptionally credible politicians, both very solid in what they've done in the past, but both very much the old guard. Something I keep writing about over and over again, and we've been talking about on the pod for well over a year now, is the Labour comms. It's an absolute disaster. They need some youth. They need some not embedded Labour Party youth. They need some proper PR marketing guys and girls to go in and run a TikTok account that's good. Socials team that put out engaging content. They're so far behind Reform in terms of online, and I think if they step that up, they can claw a bit back, because their communications is a disaster. They obviously have had some terrible decisions over the last 2 years, but they've had some good ones. They've had some wins, and some really fairly sizable wins as well, but you wouldn't know it because they don't get it out. They don't publicise it enough. So, you know, if anyone at Labour Party HQ is listening, I know some people that could help. But anyway, yeah, so the press have been full of Starmer leaving, but then he came out and said on Friday, said, I'm not going anywhere. I refuse to back out of this. This is my project, and I'm going to see it through, which is fair enough. It's what you would expect, and you know, I wouldn't have expected anything else from him. But on Saturday, May 9th, yesterday, Saturday, a surprise player entered the chat, as it were, for Labour. Labour MP Catherine West, a backbencher, who was a minister but was removed from post last year, announced on Radio 4 that she was going to put her name forward for the new leader of the Labour Party. She said that she will begin a leadership election on Monday morning. If the cabinet doesn't elect a leader amongst themselves, I will put my name forward and stand for leader. I mean, right. Where do we start with that? Stalking horse, that's what people were saying. But a stalking horse is someone who sort of acts on behalf of someone else, generally in politics, and they're sort of laying the groundwork for someone else to come in and then sort of overtake. But she said outright that she didn't have a third party. She was doing this off her own back. So she's not a stalking horse. She's an agitator. Lots of people were like, oh, this is, crazy. But, I mean, she could never win a leadership election against Keir Starmer, never in a million years, I don't think. Nobody really knows who she is. She doesn't have any history in the party at the top table. So that's a joke, really. What also happened was that it would have completely and utterly kiboshed Andy Burnham's return to politics in terms of his attempt at becoming Prime Minister or even getting back in as an MP, because if she starts the leadership election on Monday, then Burnham can't enter it because he's not an MP. He's the Mayor of Manchester. So I believe that all over the weekend, Burnham's team were trying to sort of talk her down from this, which seems to, as of Sunday afternoon, have happened, that she seems to have backed away from it now. But it's very difficult to know what's going on in our media with Keir Starmer, because it's not an equitable press when it comes, especially when it comes to him. I don't think he's in danger. Not yet, not at the moment. I wrote a longish piece on Saturday that said that who in their right mind would want to come in right now, try and win in a leadership election, which is not a foregone conclusion, and then come in when we're about to potentially hit a much, much worse cost of living crisis than maybe even of, after the Russia invasion, the war, the COVID pandemic. This thing in Iran, even though we're not hearing much about it, is just going on and on and on. Oil prices are still up and down, but they're still around $100+ a barrel. Petrol's still really expensive. But I think within about a month or so, June-ish, it's the food prices. Food's already going up because of this. But then it's medicine and plastic and everything that's related to these this oil crisis in the Middle East. Summer holidays are almost nailed on to be cancelled now, it looks like. Not all of them, but, the prices will go right up and lots will be cancelled because jet fuel's running painfully low at the moment. But yeah, so who's going to want to come in as a new Labour leader, deal with that, deal with Trump? Who wants to come in and deal with Trump right now? Trump's unhinged. You just don't know how to cope with him. And for all his faults, Keir Starmer, one of the things he has done well is handled Donald Trump. So I don't see him going anywhere. Not until maybe next year. Maybe if they're still not showing signs of improvement, if the media are still hounding him into the ground, and he's not able to sell himself, basically. Maybe this time next year I could see a contest. But, Catherine West's ludicrous attempt yesterday is just a non-starter for me. But you can see there was a Bloomberg article on Friday after Starmer had given his speech saying he's not going anywhere. And basically, the UK government bonds rallied, so debt fell, the pound went up almost instantly after Starmer said he wasn't going anywhere. It's one of the things that the media have been trying to pin on him for ages, him and Rachel Reeves, that they've not got control of the economy. But actually, yeah, there's a cost of living crisis on the way, and the welfare situation is diabolical. Yeah, so Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer's economy is trusted by the bond markets and economists and traders, because they inherited a shit show, as we all know. It was absolutely horrendous. Things were on the downward turn. And they have made progress, slow progress, granted, I'll give you that, but nobody else would turn things around any faster. I can promise you that for a start. But yeah, the fact that the bonds and the stock market and the currencies, the pound, all rallied on Friday after Starmer said, no, I'm staying, tells you quite a lot about this situation. The media are desperate for him to fail, particularly the Dan Hodges of the world, and, the Daily Mail are obsessed with it, and I just don't see it happening. So that's my roundup of the local elections and Keir Starmer, I think, for this episode. So let's move on to Reform Roundup. Yeah, so we've talked about how they performed in the local elections. They did all right. They did well. Let's call it what it is. But they didn't do as well as they'd hoped or anyone else had projected. But they did all right. Yeah, fair play. But really, the only thing that needs to be said about Reform UK this week is £5 million. Because it turned out last week, I think we said about it on last week's episode, The Guardian had exposed what Farage has called a personal gift of £5 million from Thai British businessman Christopher Harbour. This was given to him, in the run-up to the 2024 elections, within the 12 months. And I wrote an article about it, and I'm just going to find it. Here we are. So he broke the House of Commons Code of Conduct by accepting this as an undeclared donation. Loads of people are obviously in to bat for him. Oh, yeah. Firstly, they said, oh, yeah, no, it's for security. And if it's for security, you don't have to declare that. Not true, I'm afraid. I wrote about it, and I found the specific parts of the Code of Conduct. And I think what's happened there with the security situation is that there is a passage in clause 17 that says members should not register under this category any money or support provided out of public funds for security. Clearly, this wasn't public funds. This was from crypto billionaire Christopher Harbour. So the security angle of the defence is dead in the water. It's not true. And the second one is that they've said, oh, he doesn't have to declare it, didn't have to declare it because he wasn't an MP. But actually, in paragraph 5 of the Code of Conduct for Members of Parliament provides requirements of the House. Members must fulfil conscientiously the requirements of the House in respect of the registration of interests. New members, so Farage, when he was elected in 2024, must register all current financial interests and any registrable benefits received in the 12 months before their election, within 1 month of their election. It's cut and dry, as far as I'm concerned. He was given £5 million donation, gift, whatever you want to call it. it has to be declared, and he did not declare it. He's saying that because it was a personal interest, it's a bit like, this has never been me, but, if you're caught with weed by the police and you say, oh, it's for personal use, it's the same defense here that Farage is trying to use. Oh, it's for personal use. He said, and then he said it was being used for it was given to him by Harborne to keep him safe for his career because he'd been milkshaked at that point. And then he told, oh yeah, so this was his excuse last week. Well, not excuse, but he sort of tried to justify it by saying, and my house was firebombed last January. But unfortunately, Bromley police have rubbished that statement, and they said there was an attempted break-in, but nobody actually got past the front door. There was no arson attempt, no firebombing, nothing. So that was just an outright lie, as usual. But yeah, so he's up to his eyeballs in this, and actually, for once, the press are spending a bit more time than they usually would. Yeah, even Sam Coates and Beth Rigby at Sky are kind of chasing this. Sam Coates even went on to say on live TV on Saturday that if the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards finds wrongdoing from Farage, as in he should have declared this because it was within 12-month period, then he could face a recall petition, and that would mean a by-election in Clacton. And that's coming from Sam Coates, who is, let's say, been very positive, Farage positive over the last year or so. So Farage now, as of Sunday today, it came out overnight, he's blaming it on his computer being hacked. Fucking horseshit. He's such a liar. So, like it's 1998, someone managed to get into his personal computer and hack the information that he was given £5 million by Christopher Harborne for security, in inverted commas. So, if you don't know or don't remember, the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner for Standards, who will be looking at this wrongdoing, found him in breach of the Code of Conduct earlier in the year, I think February it was, because he forgot to declare 17 other incomes. And it was racked up into the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds worth. I think from memory, maybe £400,000 worth of declarations that he'd forgotten, in inverted commas again. Anyway, so he was found guilty for that and made to correct the record. But his excuse, and this is the bit that's most pertinent to all of this, is his excuse for forgetting to declare those 17 incomes was that he said, I don't do computers. Pick a lane, Nigel, because now you're saying that your computer at home was hacked with your personal information, but then you said you don't do computers, which you can't have it both ways, mate. My thought, he's been bankrolled by the crypto industry via Christopher Harborne and others. And he's been sort of hoovered up by Kwasi Kwarteng in their Bitcoin enterprise called Stack. And he's been headlining crypto conferences, Nigel Farage, and he was advertising Tether, which is Harborne's, on LBC. But my thought is, if you want to be the front of cryptocurrency in British politics, and then you're blaming the fact that a bit of information was hacked from your personal computer, I don't think that's probably, if I was in crypto, I probably wouldn't be looking to Nigel Farage as my go-to guy to front up my company. But, hey, maybe it was Kemi Badenoch. She's good at hacking. Anyway, this is actually rumbling on a bit. It's been nearly a week and the story's picking up even more pace. I saw Kat Nealon had put something out in the Observer front page today about it. Christopher Harborne, who is, I've been doing some reading about him. I'm going to put a big article out about him over the week. I think where not his downfall, that's not the right word, his kind of Achilles heel is the fact that he's the largest major shareholder of Kinetic, a defence technology company. And they're part of the British military. and he gave Boris Johnson £1 million, and they flew out to Ukraine together in 2023. And then Kinetic got a load of deals out of the Ukraine war. Now he's backing Farage. I think there's something more in the Kinetic side of things than there is in the crypto side of things, but we'll see. Watch this space, as we say. So, other than that, reform, yeah, we talked about local council elections, but I think I've written down, yeah, there's been, by my reckoning, I think, since Friday, 2 days ago, 12 newly minted Reform UK councillors have been sacked, resigned, or suspended. 12 in 2 days. That's it. It's just mad. Mainly for racism. Like, one guy, particularly horrible individual from Sunderland, who was elected on Thursday, called Glenn Gibbons, and I am going to name him because he's a vile piece of crap. He's been suspended this afternoon. He had previously said that, oh, this is gross, so, you know, I'm sorry, but I want to say it because this is a caliber of Reform candidates. He previously said that black people should be melted down and used to fill potholes. I mean, it's just unbelievably gross. You can't say anything more than that. He's been suspended this afternoon, thankfully. One of them was elected in Scotland, but had not anticipated being elected for Reform. So he resigned on Saturday because he was going on holiday. He's gone off on holiday. And they just keep coming. I think there's like at least 5 today on Sunday. So I think in total, in 2 days, they've lost 12 councillors already. It's just, I mean, we know there's no vetting at Reform, but this is like nail on the head stuff when it comes to vetting. You know, Farage will say, how can I be expected to vet 2,000 people? But you're supposed to, mate. You're really supposed to. So, yeah, that's it. I mean, for Reform this week, I think just the £5 million thing, if Sky News are talking about a by-election in Clapton, that's quite serious for Nigel Farage. I've seen quite a few of the Tice, etc., Gawain, Towler, all the usual mouthpieces out trying to defend it, but there's no defence on this. There's none. It's open and shut. He did not declare £5 million. And he said something on camera the other day, I think with Beth Rigby, said, oh, it's no big deal. You know, if someone gave you £5 million, would that be no big deal? Yeah. Anyway, they're taking legal counsel about this invented hack, so we wait and see. But that buys them a bit of time, doesn't it? So we'll see how it pans out. But he's got away with everything so far in 2 years as an MP, everything. He's done so much wrong, but he's got away with it all. If this is the thing that gets him, good. £5 million bung. We shall see. And that was a Reform roundup of the week. Couple of other things just to get through before. Oh God, I've been yammering on for a lot longer than I thought I might. Anyway, quickly, the war in Iran, America, still happening. There was some missile attacks last week. Trump said there wasn't. There definitely was. Then he said there's a ceasefire. It's not a ceasefire. I mean, you could just put that bit on loop as long as you want. But on Friday, the Department of War, Pete Hegseth's department, released a load of what they called damning UFO files to distract from the war still going on and everyone having to pay like $6 in America for gas. $6 a gallon, is it? Yeah. So, yeah, they chucked out a load. I'll put up some pictures. You can have a look now because it's one of them in particular. This one is just mad. The small print underneath says, I can't remember what it says, but it says something like, this is an actual site of a what they call them now, unexplained aerial phenomenon, whatever they are, UAP, yeah. This is the actual site of a UAP, but with an artist's impression. And as you can see from the picture, it looks like a 90s computer game. It's such a load of bullshit. They're just chucking out any old shit at the wall, hoping it sticks to distract from the war, which in itself, as we know, is to distract from the Epstein files. So It rumbles on. Petrol's still really expensive. Oil's really expensive. As I said a minute ago, that's not changed. So that's, yeah, that's the war. That's America this week so far. It's very little's gone on. And then the last thing I wanted to just touch on before I sign off for this episode. I noticed a post from Arnaud Bertrand this morning, who's a very good commentator on Twitter, if you run a writer. So I'll put a link in to his work in the show notes. There's a report produced called the Democracy Perception Index. It's run by the Alliance of Democracies Foundation, and it's sort of a global survey of how countries are perceived around the globe by their citizens of the country and by others, so outside of their countries. And I just thought I wanted to just quickly run through what some of the most notable points, because it's really interesting. The ranking of countries on democracy perception by their own citizens is interesting. So the people were asked how they perceived their own country. Was it good, bad, negative? Let me just find the actual image. So the top of the pile was the Scandi countries: Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland. They were all on plus 20 in the index, up to plus 29 for Sweden. So the Swedish people really trust their government. It's based on, they're asked about whether they trust their governments on elections, peaceful transitions, civic education, rule of law, pluralism, which is diversity, like the country shouldn't be ruled by one demographic, cohesion, basically, across society and religion and race and gender, etc. So pluralism, free speech, separation of powers, and transparency. Very few countries on the whole list score positive on transparency. They don't believe their governments tell them everything. But yeah, so the top 5 were Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Finland, Switzerland, all plus 20. Where do we find the United Kingdom? Well, it's quite a way down the list, unfortunately. It's in the neutral zone. It's not the worst, but it is down on -3. And when you compare it to Sweden's plus 29, it tells you how our country, what we think of our government and how things are run. We're below the United States, amazingly. They're on -1. Others around us in that list, Israel are on -2 above us. Saudi Arabia are -2 above us. So we're similar to Spain, Argentina, El Salvador. The very bottom of the list, for reference sake, is Kazakhstan, and they're on -31, so almost the polar opposite of Sweden. Down at the very bottom is Yemen, Paraguay, Ukraine, Cameroon, Venezuela. But then, yeah, the specific freedom of speech survey is quite interesting. It gives you a top 10, and Thailand comes out on top, so that people think that they do genuinely have true free speech. But what's very fascinating about that list is that China comes in at number 8. So the Chinese people genuinely believe that they've got a decent high level of free speech within their country. And they're way above America and UK in terms of free speech specifically, which is really bizarre and quite a surprise. But, I'll just find exactly where the UK has free speech. Yeah, -4 compared to China's +8. And the United States is -18 compared to China's +8. So there's a long way between China and America when it comes to free speech. And that's a survey of their own citizens. And then the last one is the Global Perception Ranking, which is really even more interesting. So this is how other countries perceive each other. Yeah, this is how other countries perceive each other. So top of the list is Switzerland. So then so Switzerland, Canada, Japan, and Sweden are the top of the pops in what other countries look around and go, oh, yeah, we like the look of that. Switzerland, Canada, Japan, Sweden, Italy are the top 5. What is really interesting. Let's find out where UK is. United Kingdom's 30th on that list, so kind of in the middle pretty much. So people look at us and go, meh. It's probably about right, isn't it? You know, we're a very meh country at the moment. Bottom 5, however, in the negative, in the red, on how they are perceived by the world. 5th from bottom, United States of America. 5th worst country in the world. Then Iran, then Afghanistan, then North Korea, and the bottom of the list is Israel. So Israel are perceived worse than any other country in the world by everyone else, which is unsurprising probably at the moment with the way things have gone over the last few years. But it's really interesting that America's way down there. America's below Russia, Syria, Iraq, Belarus in the global kind of perception index. Below Russia and Iraq. That's how bad Trump has ruined the Americas, the USA's kind of reputation. That's the word I'm looking for. He's really done a number on them, hasn't he? So, yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting little thing to have a chat about. And I think that's probably going to be it for now. Yeah, I've been wanging on for about 45 minutes. That's more than enough of me on my own. Sal should be back soon. She's just having a break. She needs it. So yeah, so that's it really. So we've got check us out on our website, noholdsbarredpod.com. Drop us an email about anything you want, info@noholdsbarredpod.com. What else we got? Patreon, I mentioned at the top, so patreon.com/noholdsbarredpod. And we're across every social media platform going, pretty much. I've been putting out some TikToks on my own personal TikTok recently just to promote my writing. So if you want to catch me, I'm on there. But we put clips of this out on TikTok as well as YouTube. So we're on there. I think I'm Don McGowan 333 and No Holds Pod is the pod TikTok if you want to catch us on there. That's it. Sunday. I will get this edited up. I will put it out on Patreon this evening because Patreoners get this a day before everyone else, and everyone else will get this tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, send in your messages for Sal if you want as well. Just wish her well, give her your best because she's just having a little rest and she needs. I think it's fair to say she could do with a bit of cheering up. So if anyone wants to send us a message of well-being towards Sal, I shall certainly pass that on. Right, let's wrap it. As Sal would say, like, share, subscribe. I think that's what we have to say. But yeah, genuinely, comments on our YouTube channel or our Spotify are great for helping us push up the algorithm. So if you want to have a chat to us in the comments, I do my best to try and reply to them if I can, and if they're not abusive. But yeah, like, share, subscribe. With that, I will sign off and we will be back with another episode later in the week. All being well. No, we will, definitely. Right, I'm just gibbering now. Right, I'm off. Right, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you soon.